Dr. Michael Pocock, who works for the CEH UK, the old Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. And he's going to talk to us about a project called Decide, which is, as you'll see, is a project which aims to identify areas of high priority to maximise the value of your biological recording efforts. So over to you, Michael. Thank you. And you've got 15 minutes, so I'll give you a little nudge with a couple of minutes to go.
Yep, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks so much. So hopefully you can see the screen and the slides now. Yep. Okay. Fantastic. So thank you for that introduction. I feel slightly overawed having listened to that amazing project and the plans which are going to be happening from NRW there. It's also brilliant to be with you, having lived in Swansea for 4 years, quite some time ago now, but there's still a bit of my heart that's in South Wales. So I'm going to be talking about this idea of, or a project called Decide, and this idea of precision citizen science. So let's have a think first of all. We know that volunteer collected biodiversity data is absolutely essential. It's really important for all that we do in terms of conservation and assessing the state of nature. We can look at that from local levels, as we heard earlier, just in the talk just now, but we can look at this at national levels across Wales and across the UK with things like the state of nature. It's really important to assess these trends, distributions, and the impacts of interventions. We also know, and I expect this is the case for everyone here in this session, that collecting data on biodiversity is great because it benefits us. It gives us a connection to nature, and actually that supports well-being. There was a project which I ran a couple of years ago during lockdown called Nature Up Close, which was testing that specifically. And we found that, yes, being involved in nature-based activities and nature-based citizen science in particular had benefits on our well-being. So we had the evidence to support that. And it supports this action for nature as we make changes, as we make benefits, as we look to support our natural environment. All of this data is really valuable. So how are citizen science data collected? Well, we've got this range of different approaches. We've got the structured monitoring, the going out, recording butterflies or birds or bumblebees, things like this, using structured monitoring, revisiting specific sites, following a protocol, gathering data on abundance. At the other extreme, we've got the unstructured recording using iRecord. You can use it via the website or the app or other tools as well. You record what you want whenever you want. And we know that we can get millions of records per year through unstructured citizen science. We've also got this thing in the middle, which is semi-structured recording. It's great. You can follow a protocol, provides that a little bit more structure, but you can participate wherever you want. So these are sort of three broad ways in which we can think about collecting data. One of the troubles is that unstructured and actually semi-structured recording is spatially uneven. And we see that both at a national level, with the map on the left there, shows that there's a lot more records collected. These are from iRecord, a lot more records collected in different parts of the country. You can see that Wales, particularly Mid Wales, is relatively under-recorded in terms of the number of records compared with Southeast England, which is where many, many more people live, of course. But we also see this pattern at really local scales as well. So this is a town just to the west of London, and you can see the pattern of butterfly records are really clustered around certain parts of the town, less in the countryside, some in key parts of the countryside. So all of this can be quite challenging for us to be able to use these data. The point is that all of these records are valuable. All of the evidence that we collect is really valuable, but we don't simply need more records. We need more informative records. So the big question for me and for you as recorders is, how do you choose where to go in order to make your records as informative as possible? Clearly, part of what influences your choice is all of those motivations, that things like what John was talking about, sense of place, but also your connection, how it fits in with your daily life, and all sorts of things like this. But for some of your time, you may wish to be more intentional about the way that you record to really benefit nature conservation and the data that it needs. So briefly, one method which we've developed and have been trialing is the targeting revisits map. The idea about this is that when we do, or at least some of the trend analysis that we do, what we need is we need data from sites which have been visited in multiple years. So if we present a map, for example, shown here for grasshoppers, to show you the places where we do have records and to separate the places where we have records in 1 year only, shown in pink, from those where we've got records from multiple years in green. And what this means is that if you go back and revisit and make records of grasshoppers in the squares which are coloured pink, you turn them green and allow data from those sites to be used in our trend analysis at the Biological Records Centre at UKCH. So that's really superb. And so we've trialled that with a few different taxonomic groups. And we've received a really positive outcome in terms of the way that people are really positive that this is something which is motivating to them to get out there, do recording, and be able to target that recording in specific places. So please do have a look at this and give feedback via the link on the website. The second one, which is a bigger and a slightly more complex way of viewing this, is a project funded by the Natural Environment Research Council called DECIDE. So I lead that, but have brought together an amazing group of people covering all these different fields because we felt it was absolutely essential to get this really broad perspective on how we may be able to influence or suggest that people might be able to record in slightly different ways. So we've got expertise from ecology and citizen science, but also the social science and thinking about the visual data science and computer science, and all sorts of things like this. Co-design has been at the heart of this project. So the key thing is that what's the need? Well, we know that we've got information on, we have good information, good data that allows us to provide these large scale national trends for reporting. We also know that we've got data for specific sites, nature reserves, places which might be under threat of development, things like that. So going out, making records or looking at the records for those sites is essential. But when we look at a range of other data users, what we see is that a lot of people are saying what they lack is comprehensive and fine scale maps of biodiversity or natural capital, we could call it that, to inform some of this regional decision making, how people might target large scale conservation, how people might make strategic decisions about planning for development, things like this. And also what we know is that recorders lack these tools to guide their recording and increase its value for nature. So what we know is that we can't simply rely on the data, the sort of dot maps of where records or where species have been seen in order to do this. So the solution that we've used is to base what we're doing on species distribution models. So we'll take a range of covariates, which are often from satellite data, and we'll then combine that with the species records that we've got. And what that gives us is a predicted distribution for any particular species. Crucially, that also gives us the uncertainty. So we might know that a species, or we might predict that a species is likely to be here and unlikely to be here. But there are places where we have those predictions with less certainty. And so in order to identify the priorities for recording, what we've done is we've taken that uncertainty layer and we've said, where are the models of species distribution least confident? And then we've combined that across a range of species. We then add to that layer the information on where observations have been already made. So we know people have been to those places in the recent past and provided some information. Combining those two gives us information on where it's best to collect new observations. And so we've packaged this together in an interactive tool. So the ask is, if you want to discover new places or different places to record wildlife, explore this tool. Shows those places with high priority for recording. You can then use this, choose a place to visit, and then this is not about a new tool for recording. Record using your existing tools, but ideally record all the species that you see for the particular taxonomic group. Within the Decide tool, as we're trialing it, we've been developing it for butterflies and day-flying moths. And next year, we're going to be bringing, sorry, this year now, we're going to be bringing in nocturnal moths and grasshoppers as well. So we've got the colours on the map, we've got pins where you can click to get specific suggestions and get a bit more information about those sites and accessibility, things like this. Co-design, as I said, is absolutely essential within this whole project. So we'd love you to explore this and to give feedback. So on the tool, there's the gold button at the bottom saying give feedback. You can give feedback as many times as you want. There's a form there. You don't even have to fill in all the details on the form. Simply put in the comments as you want. And we take it really seriously. We've actually got quite a structured workflow for being able to incorporate that into our design and development. The other way in which you can get involved is to join the mailing lists. We've got two, a general mailing list and a co-design mailing list. Now the co-design mailing list I think is particularly valuable, and I would encourage you, if you've got any interest in this at all, join that co-design mailing list. Every so often we'll send out polls, we'll send out questionnaires. They're quick ways in which we can simply push out some ideas and get some feedback. We want this tool to be designed for recorders and in conjunction with recorders. In this coming year, we're going to be developing feedback from the tool, which is seeking to be more relevant, accessible, actionable, and appealing. There's loads of decisions we need to make within there. So join that co-design mailing list and you'll be able to be part of the group that helps shape this. And the final thing is, as I said, I've focused quite a lot on recorders, but there's also this thing of where the data goes. And I'm just going to close in just a moment, Adam. We've got this, we want to co-design with the data users. And so we've got these first proof of concepts, so making layers of that modeled information available for those decision makers. We've got a series of co-design workshops, which are going to be running over the next few weeks to really be able to look at this. So there you have it. Thank you for your attention. I'd love to hear any questions, and I do hope that you'll explore this and get involved with the co-design aspects of this project. Thank you.
That's great, Michael. Thank you very much. That's a fascinating talk on a really interesting subject. I've had a good look around the tool myself before, and I think there's great potential. In fact, we did share the tool around our recorders regionally to get some thoughts back on it as well. So particularly with your butterfly recording efforts. I do have a couple of questions that popped up in the Q&A. So Stephen Davison asks, don't we need to record visits where the species were looked for, were not present, as well as those positive visits?
Yeah, and this is always a really big challenge, I think, with citizen science, this whole way of dealing with absences. I could talk about that for quite some time, but I won't. The simple thing is, that's why one of the things that we're encouraging people to do is to record complete lists, because then what we do have is we do have information on the species that weren't detected on that particular visit. So that, I think, is the simplest answer to that question.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you. Another quick one from Paul Seligman. He says, Michael, you were saying with one revisit to the same place by the same observer, recording the same taxonomic groups, you can produce a trend, irrespective of other variables like date, time of day, duration, route, and weather. Or did I misunderstand?
All of those different attributes will be going into the models that we use. So we don't, we use, so this is work within the Biological Records Centre at CEH. We run some fairly sophisticated, complicated models, which do take many of those sorts of attributes into account. We're always seeking to refine them to further improve that sort of information. One of the challenges is that often things like the length of the route or the length of time you were out there is not recorded alongside your records. And so we're also looking at new ways of being able to incorporate that data more efficiently into our data capture and therefore into our models to improve them.
Excellent. I'm afraid we're going to have to call an end to the questions. There's another outstanding. I'm not entirely. I think you may be able to see the Q&A, Michael. Maybe able to type answers as well. In fact, there are a couple of more coming in. So if you don't mind doing that, that'd be brilliant. The links have already gone in the meeting chat to the background website and the tool itself, and your Twitter link. So hopefully people will start to interact with you now. Thanks ever so much for giving up some time on your Saturday, Michael, to speak to us. It's very interesting. I'm sorry we can't have a longer discussion about it.
Not at all. Thank you so much.